Okay, I'm going to give a try to remove some of the white lacquer of the Aristona's cabinet, but I'm going to try it first on the inside of the cabinet just to see the result of decapping the lacquer. If I'm confident it'll work, then I'll start giving it the same decapping on the outside. Well, as you can see, it works with the acetone, but you really need a lot of patience. And the way it's going, this has taken me, I don't know, quarter of an hour, 20 minutes. So if I'm going to do the whole radio, well, that's going to take me at least another couple of hours. So let's just dig in and continue. There are 36 ways to clean oxidized metal surface. So what I'm doing right now, as you can see on the bezel, I'm using metal polish. You know, the kind of metal polish I've been using before. And it takes quite a little bit of rubbing to get it clean, but I think I can get most of the oxidation off of the bezel, and once I've done that, I'll probably spray some transparent lacquer over it to protect it from oxidizing even more. The same goes for the surface of the buttons. Normally, as you can see, it has a slightly golden shiny look, but on this button particularly it's quite oxidized, so I still have quite some cleaning to do. Well, I finally managed to clean off most of the white paint from the Aristona's cabinet. Now, when I say most, I mean that from every visible part of the cabinet I removed the paint, the white paint. But on the parts which are hidden, namely inside the cabinet, in this area and in this area, there is still some white paint left. Now, you might think that I didn't do a good job of taking off the white paint, but it turns out that this bit and that bit over here are actually originally painted white. Well, were originally painted white. Now, nowadays it's more like an ivory color instead of white. So this part is original white paint, but that turned a yellowish over the years, and it was covered by new white paint like you see here. This piece, which is still left on, is the original white. Well, it has become off-white since I cleaned all of the paint off, so it's not pure white anymore. But in any case, it has become an off sort of white. Now I'm considering whether I will repaint this bit in white, because this is at the back of the tuning plate, which is on top of it. So if we take the tuning plate, yeah, you see, this is the tuning plate. You see that the back, at the back of the tuning plate, there was white paint, and the reason for that was, and still is, that the light coming from the light bulb down here, down below here, would reflect against this part and then light up the back of the tuning plate, which is this. Yeah, so actually, like I say, or like I said, I'm really considering of painting this part, but only this part, white again. Now, whether I'll paint it in an off kind of white or in a bright, brand new kind of white, I don't know yet. Probably I will end up giving it a fresh, new spray paint coating of white, really bright white, to serve as a backlight for, or reflector for the light coming from the light bulb. I'm sort of undecided on that point as yet. It might be that I painted silver instead of white, since the goal of this part is to reflect light. So I don't know yet. We'll see. Now, there is one part which I didn't completely clean. Well, I didn't remove completely the white paint, and that's this part here. Now, the reason for it is twofold. On the one hand, I didn't remove it because in the end the covering panel will be glued back into place over this part, exactly over this part. So the white paint won't show up at all. And the second reason is that this part of the paint proved particularly hard to remove. I don't know what they used on it, or maybe it was a different kind of white paint they used for this part, but it's extremely hard to remove. And well, I'm really getting tired of scraping away and cleaning away at the paint, flake by tiny flake. And like I said, progress on this part is so slow and so painful actually that I decided to leave it on. It'll be covered up, and in the end, whether it's there or not won't make any bit of difference to the overall look of the radio. It's unfortunate in a sense, but well, you know, this cabinet has had well, quite a life. Now, if you look at the brown part, so the Bakelite, the naked Bakelite side of the cabinet, you'll see that, well, it has been, unfortunately, as I feared it would be, it has been heavily sanded. And you can see the traces, by the way. Yeah, if I make a close-up, you can actually see the scratches from the sanding paper they used. So you can see the individual scratches. You can see it, well, not here, but here, for example. You can see, as I make a close-up, okay, hang on, I need to make a focus. So, let's see, okay, from this angle, you can see the actual scratches they made with sanding paper. And they really did a fantastic job sanding it. Actually, it makes sense, of course, to sand the surface as thoroughly as they did if you intend to paint it. So, from that point of view, they did a marvelous job. Of course, this makes my job, namely to render this Bakelite cabinet, or to bring back the original surface of this Bakelite cabinet to the front, that much harder. The yellowish stuff you see on top of the cabinet, well, it's everywhere on the cabinet, but on top it's particularly visible. This yellowish stuff is a residue of something. Now, I don't know what that something might be, but in my opinion, this yellowish stuff is leftover from a primer they used probably on the surface of the cabinet before they painted it white. So this is actually leftover, a primer leftover. Okay, so aside from the obvious, well, damage, you could say, you know, of the sanding and the primer and you name it, there is as such no real damage to the cabinet itself. I mean, the cabinet is not heavily scratched, well, heavily gouged. It isn't broken, it isn't cracked, and the only real breaks or the only real damage I found inside the cabinet is this bit here. So if I make a close-up, there you go. Okay, so this part here, normally there's a little protrusion like here. So here it broke off. Why that is, I don't know, but the fact remains it broke off. And then you see a little protrusion here. This is where normally the light bulb cap is held in place. You know, a small metallic cap with a hole in it through which the light bulb is put. Now, one of the pins on this side, namely, has broken off. But fortunately, I'm still in possession of that pin. So after I'm done completely cleaning the cabinet, I think I can restore this pin. So I can glue it back, which is great. So yeah, there's still a tiny little bit of white paint left, namely on top here. This is one of the support struts to which the chassis is attached, and then on the other side there's also a little bit of paint left here. Now, like I said, for the front, the same goes for these things. You know, the chassis will be attached over this part and therefore will hide the white paint. So the fact that it's still slightly white on top doesn't really bother at all. But as you can see, even on the inside, originally it was covered in white paint. I removed that too. So the cabinet is as clean as I could make it on the inside and the outside. I even managed to remove some of the glue residue, you know, of the aluminized paper which was glued here, and of the little pins which hold the brass bezel to the front. You know, these little holes here and here, and there's one here, yeah, as there is one here and one there. These little holes were full of glue, and I managed to remove most of the glue. Now, interestingly enough, the original, well, the front panel is attached to the cabinet with glue. Actually, originally, I think, it was held on with glue. Now you can still see some glue residue here. Well, here mainly, and a little bit here, and some more here. I'm not going to remove the white paint, I said that already, but what I am going to do is give it a try to remove the last of the... I stripped the paint off the cabinet completely with the help of acetone and a homemade wooden scraper. I do not have to remind you that if you're going to work with any kind of instrument on a sensitive surface like bakelite, for example, that you should not work with metal implements or stone implements, nothing which is harder than bakelite. So I used relatively soft wood to fashion a kind of a wooden scraper, pretty much like the wood they use for tongue spatulas at doctor's practice. So or a soft kind of plastic perhaps might do too. So now I'm gearing up to clean the residue off the surface of the cabinet. On the right you see the effect with polishing compound. On the left you see what is left on the cabinet after a cleaning with some detergent mixed with alcohol. So I cleaned the surface off with a window cleaning solution, and then I started to abrade the surface with a mild abrasive. Well, it's not sandpaper, it's really a polishing compound, but it's relatively mild. It's a metal polishing compound, and you can start to see the marbling of the bakelite shine through the layer of grime that I'm polishing off. So with a little bit of luck we might get the bakelite, or we might give the bakelite back its lustrous shine, the way bakelite is intended to be. So let's continue. Well, after 4 hours of cleaning and polishing, well, this is the result. As you can see, I managed fairly well to clean up the cabinet of the Aristona, and this is pretty much how it must have looked like years ago. And as you can see, it's reasonably glossy seen from every side. I didn't clean extremely well the inside. I cleaned it out, but only to a necessary degree, but not more. I have no intention whatsoever of polishing the inside too. So basically what needs to be done is, as you can see, the cabinet is fairly glossy, not extremely so, but it's coming pretty close. You can see the reflection of the seat in the surface of the radio, so it's certainly not bad at all, considering the state it was in when I started. Well, this is pretty good, but I should mention that it took me about 4 hours to get to this result. And we're not quite done yet with the cabinet, but as you can see, with a little bit of spit and polish, you can get quite far. Now, I must admit that I did not use the Novus product, a product I don't doubt which is quite good to polish surfaces like this, but well, you know, Novus is very hard to get where I live, well, in Europe, in Belgium and in Europe in general, and you have to pay ridiculous prices for it, and you also have to pay ridiculously high shipping fares to have it shipped to where you live, at least if you live in Europe. So I managed without the Novus, although I don't doubt with Novus I could get it even glossier and even shinier than it is. But in the end I ended up using two products to get this result, namely my trusted metal polish, which you've seen me use on other parts too. I used it because, you know, they say you can use it on chrome and copper and stainless steel and even enamel. So I thought as a polishing compound this wouldn't be too bad. Now the other polishing compound is something you might all know. Well, I'm pretty sure all of you know it. Yes, it's toothpaste. Now the brand you see here is not specifically a brand I was looking for. What I was looking for is this White Now stuff. Now there are several toothpaste brands who sell this White Now stuff, and what it ends up to be is really a very, very, very thin polishing compound. Yeah, but extremely, extremely fine polishing compound. Because they say that it polishes your teeth white. Now, I don't think it really polishes your teeth absolutely white. I mean, like the color of the brand, but I don't doubt that it does polish quite gently, actually, because it's probably very, very, very fine polishing compound. In fact, so fine that I managed to get quite a good shine in the Bakelite surface. And in fact, if you look carefully, you can even see the pattern of the Bakelite. Yeah, so well, like I said, I don't doubt that the product Bob uses, you know, of the B. Anderson TV YouTube channel, so the Novus he uses all the time to polish surfaces like this. Well, I don't doubt that product is good. It's probably perfect, but like I said, it's too expensive for me. So I managed rather well with these two products. And well, I suppose there are still other compounds you could use, but I think with a little bit more patience and a little bit more polishing with the toothpaste, I think I can get it pretty close to a glossy surface. It will probably take me quite a bit longer than if I used specific polishing compounds, but hey, you know, in the end it's just a little bit of my time and a lot of effort. Now you can see this rag is definitely a brownish color. So while I was polishing the surface of the radio, well, I abraded probably a fine layer of the Bakelite, and of course I also abraded the residue that was on top, yeah, and that gave this nasty kind of brownish color. Now what I use is a block of semi-hard foam like this. This is insulation foam, yeah, and it's pretty hard. There is some spring to it, but it's reasonably hard, but it makes for a perfect grinding block. And then I cut a piece of cotton cloth, and I put the cotton cloth around the insulation material, you know, around this block of insulation foam. And then I started to grind the surface, first in circular movements, then from left to right and up and down, and then in circular movements again. And I made, if I'm not mistaken, 3 passes all over the cabinet. And then I did a pass with the toothpaste and a little water and a clean cloth. Well, a relatively clean cloth. As you can see, this is white. And this is the result I got with the toothpaste. So not nearly as brown as that. Yeah. So to me, that's a clear proof the toothpaste is abrasive, but very, very, very gentle as an abrasive. So that's the result. So I'll end up giving it just one more pass with the toothpaste until it really feels silky smooth. It already feels extremely smooth, and I hope I will get even more gloss out of the surface. And then when that's done, I'll give it another rubbing, but this time with wax. So I'll wax the surface of the cabinet. And what I need to do then is I need to clear coat the brass bezel that goes around the front plate, yeah, and then I'll try restoring the lettering on the front plate, you know, the channel plate of the radio. I still haven't decided what I'm going to do with this surface, whether I'm going to leave it as it is or whether I'm going to recoat it in white or maybe even in silver. I don't know, but I think it should be mildly reflective, since it reflects the light coming from the light bulb onto the front plate, onto the channel plate. So I think it should be reflective, but I haven't decided yet in what color. White, silver, maybe even a gold color. I don't know. We'll see. Anyway, this is the result for now, and I'll post another update when I'm gearing up to do the rest of the cleaning of the Aristona cabinet.